Good afternoon, everyone. I assume most of you are involved in one way or the other in IoT security, and what I'm planning in this session is to take it more down to earth and demonstrate what does it mean for an average smart home owner to have a vulnerable smart home. What kind of scenarios can we expect, and what's the status of the smart home security today? So
even though the European Union
I assume some of you are following
Mr.
Mr. Robot. Just share with you a scene from Mr. Robot. It's not very optimistic view of a connected home, but I think you enjoy it anyway.
And I'm just the messenger. I am telling you folks, this is what they don't want you to hear. Because a union strike at the Comet Natural Gas plant will cause an energy shortage, the likes of which has never been seen in the Northeast. Without literal power, we will have no power. This is part of a strategy to declare economic war on this country. And they know it. They know exactly what they are doing. Some political talking head on television, blabbing on and on and on, telling people, lying to them. Instead, bring on a historian, somebody who can explain the past. Because this quote-unquote crisis has happened before. If you truly understand the reason behind this manufacturing crisis, why don't you about the Weimar Republic? Because the similarities, the parallels are disturbing. You see that the first step in destroying democracy is simple. That is, you're rooting the end of the world as we know it. They've actually got people cheering in the streets. Cheering in the streets! Now let me tell you, all of those people get that and how to end their but they're so happy about it. Inflation. Yeah, that's right. Inflation.
Yeah, no, it could have been funny if it was not real. So what is the change? What is the difference? A connected home is nothing new. So we have people who are using the internet for decades already. And the shift from a connected home to what we call smart connected home is that up to recently, we have people who had different kind of connected devices, mainly personal computing devices, PCs, laptops, smartphones, tablets, you name it. And the smart home is really taking physical functions that each one of us knows, like locks, thermostats, flood detectors, alarm systems. When we add to them connectivity and control, they become smart devices, and we call them in the industry IoTs. The adoption is really booming in the recent years, and it's gonna go even further. And I think my colleague shared with you his own personal experience, but we see the same. People already have anything from low tens of devices. We have seen customers already with 200 devices. When you have each light bulb with Wi-Fi and in a connected home, you easily end up with hundreds of devices. Now, anyone who's in a cybersecurity business knows that it's a very simple and basic math. If you have a connected device and it's vulnerable, it's only a matter of time until this vulnerability will be discovered by hackers, will be exploited, and from that point, many things can happen. So when we're talking about anything between 15 to 25 billion connected devices by 2020, that means that there is a huge amount of endpoints expecting some kind of compromise. And if we just try to give it some proportion, we can find smart homes today that we used to consider, when it comes to the amount of devices, we used to consider as an SMB. And we can't really expect an average consumer to be capable of handling its own home network and the cybersecurity related stuff when it comes to this amount and this complexity of devices. We have seen in the recent, only in the recent couple of years, that very sophisticated tools, even government level hacking tools are being leaked and spread all over. And it's not by accident that the largest DDoS attack ever happened because of an compromised IoT devices. In this case, it was IP cameras that were infected with Mirai botnet. And that's one of the most bothering facts about IoT when it comes to cybersecurity. It's the scale. It's relatively easy to replicate a massive attack because all you need is just to compromise the first device and then you can replicate it by millions. Same devices, same vulnerability, all of them connected and the vast majority of them not protected. When we look at the cybercrime kind of industry, and it is an industry because a lot of money involved in this industry, it's getting easier and easier for the hackers, and we can see it in fact that there are, unfortunately, in many cases, few steps ahead of us, the industry, who needs to protect the customers against those attacks and vulnerabilities. Also, it's getting more and more complex to trace and find the people who are operating those synchronized and orchestrated attacks. And the ability to attack millions of devices at once is something that didn't really happen before the existence of IoT devices. So we have seen massive attacks and very complex one on large enterprises. But when we're talking about millions of endpoints executing by command some very specific function, this is relatively new. Again, mainly due to the ease of gaining access to those devices. And I think the major shift that people still are struggling to capture is the blurring boundaries between what we call digital and physical. So there is no real boundary between digital and physical anymore. Most of the consumers are aware for what I call the legacy kind of digital risks. So, you know, someone stole my file, deleted my file, encrypted my hard drive, but it was all digital. When it comes to IoT, those devices are actually controlling physical assets. They're controlling physical aspects of our life. And that, of course, opens a wide range of possibilities to cause a damage. And the boundaries that we kind of define in the industry are artificial because there is no real boundary. Even in the IoT domain, there is no real boundary between what we call consumer IoT, industrial IoT, enterprise IoT. They're all connected to the same network. And we have seen already combined attacks that are happening in this way. So this blurring boundaries poses new risks to anyone who uses those devices. And unfortunately, mainly when it comes to IoT, and even more when it comes to consumer IoT, where they have zero capabilities of mitigating those risks, the situation is really far from being resolved. So what I'm going to show with you now is a live demo, and just to show you how a simple software development mistake that has been done by, in this case, a developer of an IP camera can evolve into a scenario where you actually gain control over the whole network and disarm an alarm system, and practically can gain access, a physical access, and that's exactly the sample of the lack of boundaries between digital and physical. So digital vulnerability is actually evolving into a physical burglary. So what you see here is my humble California home. That's due to the real estate prices, this is the largest house I can afford in California. And as a kind of responsible and concerned cybersecurity expert, I equipped my home with an IP camera, an alarm system, and I even have an Alexa just for operating different stuff. A very simple and basic setup. You see Alexa even recognize me, already responding. So I will not go deeply into the details how we did the hack, but it was, in this case, relatively simple. There was a software flow in this camera that enabled us to gain control over the operating system of this camera. And once we got that, we're actually inside the home network, and we can start looking around. We can deploy different type of hacking software to the camera, and that's exactly what we did. And guess what? We found out that there is an alarm system. Can easily detect the model, and by knowing the model, we easily also compromise the alarm system. So it's a scenario of evolving attack, and this is something that is very important to explain. We're not talking about standalone devices. These are connected devices. So all the hackers or anyone who want to cause damage need is just one weak link, and then you gain access to the network and start the operation from there. I'm sorry, it got locked. Okay, so as many hackers, and we're on the ethical side, we're lazy, so everything is scripted here. And the first thing, as I told you, we got is just to gain access to the operating system of the camera. And you can see that I have a full access to its file system and run any script from here. The house itself is already connected, and the alarm system is armed, so if I open it, it should go online. We have some okay. I'll just power it off. So when we gain access to this operating system, we deployed some tag vectors. So for example, if you can just hold on your mobile phone, I'll show you how I'm instructing the camera to capture a picture and send it, in this case, to my Dropbox, but it can go anywhere in the world. And when I go to my Dropbox, so you see yourself, right, in the top right. The same goes with the alarm system. I can arm and disarm the alarm system from here. So this is just an example how a simple vulnerability in the system of the camera gave me the ability to hack into the home network, and then from there start wandering around and find additional vulnerabilities. And That's something that I totally agree with my colleague from Avast. We actually, as Dojo Labs, before we got acquired by Bulgard, pioneered the domain of IoT security, and we need to treat it as a network, and the security needs to be on the network level, providing the consumer the ability to adopt different kind of IoT devices without being concerned about their security level, about the privacy breaches, and in many cases, even if the consumer does, it doesn't have the tools to understand what really does it mean. So thank you, and if you have questions.
Thank you, Yossi. Great demo. Certainly very interesting. And you mentioned Mr. Robot, but I'd also recommend Black Mirror for privacy implications as well in our very near future societies.
Yeah.
If we have any questions, please send them on the Twitter. Otherwise, perhaps we'll get to them later. So thank you for that. Round of applause for Yossi, please.
Just need to take it off.